real fast.
All right, so before we start, just a couple sort of reminders. A week from tonight, we will all be in the auditorium. The young men will be kind of directing the service for us. And so we'll stay in there for that. And that's always, for me, a very enjoyable night. I love watching those young men get up. And so I think we got 3 different speakers. And I think 22 young men total will be up there doing something next week, so that'll be neat. Also, we've kind of been hearing a lot about the hurricane. I know a lot of people are interested in doing some hurricane relief. We haven't really got together as elders and came up with a, hey, here's where we think you need to do this. But there are some good spots. Sunset Church of Christ has got a man that is Rusty, I think, went to school with him, and a place that we could trust to, handle our funds correctly and efficiently. And there's probably some other places as well. We will try to get you some information on that. We just have not yet, but we will. And there's going to be need for that. For years. I mean, it's going to be a long old time. So. We'll make something at some point. But right now, a lot of the recovery relief is going on, and so anyway, there's room for people to help with that. I saw a couple different sign-ups out there where you could sign up to go spend a week cutting trees down and stuff, and it's gonna be a long old time for that. Also remember, Sunday is our focus Sunday. Dr. Brumback is coming from Freed Hardman. I feel like there's going to be a lot of visitors here Sunday. Logan and I are really probably expecting about 500 here Sunday. So I'm encouraging us that bring food to maybe bring some extra food, an extra dish perhaps, because I think we may have some extra folks stay for lunch, which would be great. But anyway, looking forward to this weekend. That's all I can think of. All right, I want to continue with our apologetics discussion. We looked at, since we started this, just looked at the Bible. What determines the books of the Bible, what determines the canon of the Bible. So all of that, we've got great manuscript evidence. The evidence for the Bible is far greater than any other written work we have available. So really there's just nothing for the world to argue about from that point of view. It is an authentic, what's that word? Authentic, there it is, authentic document with many manuscripts to support it. As we kind of move down the food chain, I guess, with apologetics, the next thing I want to talk about is the existence of God. And this is maybe a little bit more theological in nature, but I think it's good for us to think through. There's a lot of arguments out there in the world, and I ran into some of these arguments while I was at Southeastern, and Dr. Hardy may have as well, with some folks. Oh, Dr. Hardy was in here.
I'm back here.
Oh, there he is. You were hiding behind John.
I was trying not for you not to point me out.
Yes. Too late.
Now that he's done that.
Yes. But he has revenge coming, so it's okay. So let's talk about some of the kind of the arguments for the existence of God. And again, these are just kind of thought processes. They have different names. I don't know that the names of these necessarily matter, but you'll kind of see how the different thought processes go. So kind of at the very beginning of all this is this fact that we exist. So, and honestly, there are some people who would say, no, wait a minute, do we really exist? Yeah, we really exist. So one of 3 things happened. Either we have always been here. Either humanity has always existed for eternity going as far back as we can go. If that's not the case, then we came into existence from nothing. Or the third option would be we came into existence from something. So those are really kind of the 3, what you might call the 3 arguments here. one of the things, I used to teach physics in high school, and one of the things I like to do with my physics class is take them back in time, okay? So let's go all the way back to whatever it is that we would consider the beginning of things. So what did that look like? Well, if we go all the way back, as far as we go back, it doesn't matter how we get back there. One of two things was true. Either there was this little ball, infinitesimal ball of matter, is what the scientific world would say. Matter that was in all of the matter in the universe in the size of a pinhead is what they say. But we're not at the beginning yet. If that's there, has that always been here, or did it just poof in from nothingness? So something had to have happened with that. So, and honestly, the scientific world, some would say that this matter, the matter-energy connection, is eternal. But they would say, when you get back to the little dot, that it is cyclic. And that is that, yes, the universe had a beginning, but that was an infinite number of beginnings as the universe expands, and at some point it will reach its maximum. We don't know when or where, and then it will contract on itself and go back into the little infinitesimal bubble, and then it will blow up again. And so it's in this ever expanding and contracting nature, and that honestly that is probably one of the most popular theories right now about the existence of the universe. We know that the relationship between matter and energy is always changing, but it's always a constant. Matter and energy is never created or destroyed. It's just changing its form. And somehow in this cyclic universe structure, it's able to change back to all matter or all energy or back and forth once, I don't know, however that happens. So, of course, the only other option is that back sometime, poof, out of nothing came something, and again, that goes against everything that we know in the natural world. That's just ridiculous that would happen. So let's kind of think through this for a little bit then. So let's say that it explodes, okay, and we've got the universe forming, and we've got the Earth forming, and then let's say we're going to start life on our planet. The difficulty has not changed any, because once we get to life, we're still in this situation of, did life come from non-life, or has life always been part of this system? I mean, was there some kind of life essence or something that was contained in this and grew out of this? From the point of view of the evolutionary thought, then, so let's give them, okay, so life happens, okay, however that happens. Single cell, then somehow we got to go from single cell to many cell. Did you know there's not 2-celled animals? There's not 3-celled animals, there's not 4-celled animals. There's single-celled animals, and then there's, a bunch of cells. So somehow we go from single cell to a bunch of cells. Okay, so let's give them that. Let's say that happened. At some point, when we start having male-female stuff, okay? When you start having this reproduction where it's not asexual, you got to have 2 different ones. You realize that the first, whatever it was that came out, the first fish that needed a mate that came out, that mutated out, that mutation has to happen at the same time as another one happens. So for life to happen, there has to be, you can't have single mutations. Okay, you see that? They have to be parallel. There has to be a male and a female. They have to happen at the same exact time, and in the same exact pond, so they can find each other to mate. And that's going to take place over billions and billions of years. And it's not only going to happen once, it's going to happen once for every species on the planet. I'm sorry, I do not have that kind of faith. I don't. It's impossible for it to happen one time, much less over and over and over and over and over again on our planet. And time, it doesn't matter time. It doesn't matter. It is not going to happen. So anyway, as we think about God existing, and we think about this idea, something has always been here. Something has always been here. So once again, as we go all the way back, okay, so matter is eternal. What is the difference between matter being eternal and God being eternal? If you can believe God, matter is eternal, why not just say God's eternal? Isn't it basically the same belief? Something has always existed. Now, the only difference is that I'm suggesting that what has existed, it was an intelligent being and could bring intelligent design into our world. So that's one of the next things that we want to talk about then is, do we see design? Do we see design? And we're going to look at some of this tonight. This design argument is unbelievable. All design needs a designer. All design needs a designer. So, April and I like to deer hunt. So let's say that we're out at Jeff's and we're walking through the woods on the way to the deer stand, and we walk up on a camping area. There's a tent set up, and there's a fireplace going, and there's somebody has shot a squirrel, and they're roasting a squirrel over the fire, and got a stack of wood over there. When you see that, what immediately comes to mind?
Wade was there.
Who did this? Yeah. Where is Wade at? Who did this? You don't think, boy, I wonder if that happened in that last storm. That does not come to mind, right? Who did this? Who set this camping area up? Design is obvious around us. It's completely obvious. And the design that we see all around us, not only in the universe, not only in the way the planets work, but when we move closer to home, our bodies, our minds, our eyes, our brain, shout out, someone built me. Someone built me. There's a great designer here. And so we're going to look at some of that evidence. And again, this idea, does God exist? The design argument, all of it seals it in my mind, but the design argument seals it, again, beyond a doubt in my mind.
Layne, might I
Yes.
throw another couple words in there?
Absolutely.
Design sometimes maybe abstract enough that maybe we're not sure what constitutes design. Pattern, it would be another word that
Yeah.
if you see pattern, if you see structure, if you see design, okay, patterns don't exist without a pattern maker.
Right.
Okay, structure isn't there without a being to have built it, to have constructed it.
Yeah.
And when you look around in the world, there is an enormous amount of structure. And a lot of mathematics is all about trying to describe in some way the structure of the world that we see around us. And our very bodies are immensely complex mathematical
Yeah.
structures.
Well, and take that one more step. Mathematics would not exist if there wasn't design for us to try to describe. And the study of mathematics, of course, is this ginormous field. And there's equations and formulas that basically describe almost everything that you can imagine, all kinds of movement. One of the classes that Dr. Hardy is teaching is a study on shapes like the ellipse, and so that's the orbit of our planet. They're elliptical, and they follow these exact mathematical equations where 1,000 years from now somebody can tell you on July 1st in 4042 where the Earth is going to be to like a millimeter because of the mathematics, because of the design that is there, because of the structure, the pattern that is there. Anyway, thanks for bringing that out. And other comments?
Darwin, even looking at the complication of the eye,
Right.
suggested there had to be a creator.
Yeah, I'm going to read a quote of his
Okay.
tonight.
But
Yeah.
then he goes on to try to downplay that.
Now we know there wasn't a designer that actually did this, but sure looks like there was.
Yes.
Now, with respect to
Yeah.
the Big Bang,
What's that?
With respect to the Big Bang?
Yes.
There are more and more scientists who are setting the Big Bang theory aside, or at least calling it into question.
Right.
And saying, okay, even if we accept that there was a Big Bang, what caused the Big Bang?
Right.
And why, and they're starting to pose the question, why is it any less viable or reasonable to think that maybe there was a creator who caused the Big Bang?
Yep.
If, in fact, that's not what personally, yeah, there was a Big Bang.
That's right, Bang did it happen. That's right.
I know the big flash when he said, "Let there be light."
Yeah, that's true.
Well, there's the VeggieTales theory too.
John?
So I guess, so I'm wondering about the cosmological argument. I mean, if don't B and C, I guess my bigger question is God subject to what we call the laws of nature? Because like B and C both, in my mind, demand either an exception or a supernatural.
Right.
And I guess what I'm saying is, if we grant it to one, why couldn't it be the other?
Exactly right. No, I agree with that.
Okay.
No, that cosmological argument is, this is the three.
Yeah.
This is the three problems that we have, and again, either God or time, chance, and nature.
Yeah, so
right.
maybe I can easily eliminate A and say, B and C in theory could both exist, and then I use design and morality to then
To kind of fill
get
in.
me to the next.
Yeah, to get to the next step, right.
And
Yeah.
the mathematicians and physicists cannot get the mathematics and physics of the Big Bang Theory to work for even the first few seconds.
Yeah.
of-
So the thing about it is, you mentioned the laws of math, you mentioned the laws of nature. And it takes me back to a study that Michael did 13 years ago over in the other building, and it still sticks very heavily in my mind of, you're talking about laws are repeated, laws are proven. But they're repeated and they're proven versus like when they were trying to prove the Big Bang Theory and do talking about the terrarium and the perfect scenario of they put all of this stuff in the terrarium and waited for life to magically appear,
Right.
and it could never be done. It's theory. It's law versus law.
Yeah. Well, and actually, the whole concept of evolution, although people call it a theory, it isn't even a theory. It is a hypothesis. Because a theory is a viable explanation of something that is visible, that it can be seen. Okay? Evolution is not seen, ever, any of it. So it's not a theory, although it's called the theory of evolution. It's the hypothesis of evolution. It's the lowest of the guesses. So, and that kind of goes back to what Tiffany is saying. I mean, there's not evidence to go, oh, by the way, here's a piece of evidence that would suggest that. So, and everything has got to be, reproducible, if you will. And what John was pointing out is, so much of this, especially if you go back to the Big Bang, there's got to be exceptions here. If the Big Bang, we're saying, well, it just happened once. And the same thing with life coming on the planet, well, it just happened once, it won't ever happen again.
But I would say I would also say God is an exception.
That's right, yeah. And of course, God's not doing exceptions when he brings life in, that's what he does. He's with all powerful. God himself, as John's pointing out, is the exception because he is the eternal one. So either he's the eternal one or matter and energy is the eternal one. For me, it's a whole lot easier to think God was the eternal one. Okay, so the third argument here about the existence of God is the morality argument. And this is really an interesting discussion about morality. Where did morality come from? What makes a moral act? Who gets to decide what a moral act is? So we'll look at some of that as well. But really all three of those kind of fit together in the discussion about does God exist. And they build on each other. They kind of fill in gaps with one another as we think about the existence of God. One other part of this piece is called the law of cause and effect. For every cause, there has to be an effect. Okay? So let's say we went out here to Lake Texoma, and the lake is muddy. Okay? So everybody got that picture? I've seen it muddy before. Something made it that way. So the muddiness is the cause, is what we see. And what we're asking is, what made it that way? What effect happened to make the lake muddy? Well, it had to be adequate. Okay? So there has to be an adequate answer. And it has to be greater than the cause itself, because everything loses energy as it happens. So we see muddy Texoma, we're thinking, I bet there was a large flood upstream. Big rain happened, all this mud and debris washed in, and boy, you can just see the red and the Washita just running into the lake. We've all seen that. So there's a huge amount of energy there that is coming in. If I go down to the lake and I look down and it's muddy and I see a frog digging in the dirt, that frog did not make that lake muddy. Okay? Pretty easy to get, right? So this idea of cause and effect is extremely important, because when we look out at our universe, we know that that's a great cause out there. Something made this, whatever it was. It had to be greater than the universe itself. Okay? Whatever that is. That's pretty great before we ever start. So the other thing I said, if I go out in the, outside tonight and I blow, I'm not going to make a tornado. Okay? So some of you think I'm a blowhard, but I'm not that big of a blower. So for every cause, there's an effect. It's the law of cause and effect. It happens every time. There's no exceptions to this thing. It's just what happens. So consider our universe. It's a great cause. Some effect created it, and it must have been adequate, and I would suggest, yes, even greater than the universe itself. And so here in a minute, we're going to look at the size of our universe, and y'all know it's pretty big. And the estimates, anytime you get an estimate for the size of our universe and you wait a week, it's already out of date. So my numbers are out of date, but it's still pretty big. So again, we kind of go through this similar kind of questions that we did about God. Could our universe be eternal? As we look at what we know about the universe, could it be eternal? Well, there's some things that we know about the universe. One, the universe is expanding. So they know that. That's a big scientific deal with redshift and light and all this kind of stuff. So things are getting further and further apart. So it appears as if the universe has had a beginning. Okay? So it doesn't appear to be eternal, because it's not in a like a solid state. It's expanding. Okay? So which went into, well, it looks as if it has had some kind of a beginning. We are governed by the law of thermodynamics. And basically the laws of thermodynamics say the available energy that we have is less and less and less as time goes by. Okay? Things are burning up. Which again suggests that at some point we had the maximum amount of energy that we could have, and at some point in our future we're not going to have any at all. So whatever that continuum looks like, I don't know. But the laws of thermodynamics suggest that the universe is not eternal. And stars that they watch, as well as everything on our planet that we are aware of, everything has a life cycle. So everything comes into existence and then lives and dies. So some things have a very long life cycle, some things have a very short life cycle. But everything really that we know of on this planet, and by the way, including rocks. Rocks have a life cycle. And everything does. So all of this seems to point to the fact that our universe at some point had a beginning. So that's kind of where this idea of the Big Bang Theory, I think, started. They looked at this stuff and then they just kind of thought backwards and they, well, maybe it must have started from a little bitty dot somewhere. So that's kind of where that perhaps started. So we ask ourselves the question, our universe had a beginning, how did it start? Again, could it have created itself? Again, I just don't see that happen. Could it have created itself from nothing? Probably not. Our universe had a beginning. It did not create itself from nothing. That means there is only one other option. You know what the one other option is? Aliens creating it. And by the way,
Who created the aliens?
yeah, so, and that is, I hear that. Somebody from outer space came in and nothing has changed. All we've done is move the existence of things back to the aliens now. Okay, so aliens created us, great. Who created the aliens? And we can start all over. So, aliens just kick the can down the road a little bit and doesn't really solve anything. And by the way, all science points to a creator. All science points to a creator. Okay? The things that they say is science that points to evolution is not science, because science, what is the definition of science? Reasonable explanation of what's around us. There's nothing about evolution that has ever been observed. Nothing. And why in the world the creation of the universe is in our science textbooks, I don't know. Because it's not science. It's guesses and fabrications. Yeah, let's study the universe. Let's look at the stars. I'm fine with that. Oh, they're cool. The distance and the size of our universe is amazing. But to talk about beginnings out of that, I'm not real happy about some of that stuff. Here's an interesting deal. I got this. I don't know who I got this from. There's and I don't know for sure that he's a member of the church. I kind of think he is, but I didn't jot his name down. But I watched a video that this guy was talking, and he's a professor at one of the University of Wisconsin or something like that. And anyway, he was talking about stuff, and he mentioned these 4 statements about evolution that I thought were pretty interesting. And by the way, all 4 of these statements about evolution are all non-scientific. But they're the 4 statements basically that evolution is based on. The first one is the universe is billions of years old and it ordered itself. Okay? So that's really the first statement about evolution. Again, that is just non-scientific. There's no way that we can figure billions and billions of years, okay, anywhere. The reason they gotta have billions of years is because of mutations, and in order to get things rolling and systems developing and whatever, they say, well, it's gonna take billions and billions and trillions and whoever knows how long. And the billions of years keep growing in my lifetime. Every now and then, it goes from 1 billion to 2 billion, and then I think we're up to around 5 billion now. I don't know where we're at. But that's the first one. Again, that's non-scientific. That's outside of the realm of science. The second statement is that life came from non-life. The fundamental law of biogenesis is life comes from life and that of its kind. Fundamental law of biogenesis. Life does not come from non-life. We have no known exception to that. Unless evolution happened, then it happened one time. Or it happened multiple times back whenever that could happen back then. Okay? For whatever reason. The third one is all forms of life came from a single cell. Okay? Again, we have this problem about the male and female problem, the proximity, hitting in the right time, in the right mud puddle. And there's just a plethora of problems with these life forms developing out of a single cell. Again, no, it's non-scientific. That is not science. It's nothing that is observed anywhere, and it has never been observed. And then kind of the fourth statement is that microevolution proves macroevolution. All right, now, I don't know if everybody's familiar with those two words. Microevolution is what we see in basically all living things, okay? So if you look at us, we are a very diverse people, right? Different shapes, different eye colors. You look at dogs, there's different sized dogs, different color dogs, cats, all that kind of stuff. But we don't see cats turning into anything else. They're not turning into lizards or anything, okay? And although I believe we are created with the ability to change with our environment, okay? That is a design feature, not an evolution feature, okay? So folks that live in Africa, they have a lot of pigment in their skins. Why is that? Oh, well, that's brilliant design, isn't it? Let me create a human that if it lives in that culture, his skin will naturally get darker, and he will, in his DNA, be able to pass it off to his offspring so his offspring can do it. Beautiful design, okay? So over and over again, with microevolution, we see it in animals. You know, again, April and I like to deer hunt. And you take a deer that lives in Oklahoma, and you move to Kansas and you look at a Kansas deer, and you go to Iowa and look at an Iowa deer, and you go to Canada and look at the Canadian whitetails. They are the same genetic. They're all related. They're all whitetail deer. But man, does the Iowa deer, his hair is different than our whitetail deer here. Okay, the Kansas and Iowa hair on the deer is hollow. You know why it's hollow? Because it's an insulator. Our Oklahoma deer don't need hollow hair, so they don't have it. And boy, you can take one of those Iowa pelts, and they're thick and they're beautiful. Their hair is longer and thicker. Their bodies are bigger. They have more body fat because they need to survive these winters. That's beautiful design. Beautiful design is what that is. So anyway, microevolution does not prove macroevolution. It proves brilliant design, is what it does. But again, the statement of evolution is that microevolution, that's what we see. I don't know, that's the part of the macroevolution stuff. Macroevolution is again not scientific. Okay? We have no known exception to that. None. Not one. Not a single macroevolution is one species turning into another, or one kind turning into another kind. No known exceptions. We can do generations, thousands upon thousands of generations of fruit flies. We have fruit flies with 2 wings, 4 wings, no wings, 8 wings. We have fruit flies with 2 antennas, 4 antennas. We got fruit flies that are little and fruit flies that are big. But you know what? They're all fruit flies. The fruit flies are not turning into birds or dinosaurs or anything. They're fruit flies. After thousands and thousands of generations, microevolution, many changes, but none of this macro stuff. Okay? So again, science points to a creator. It always has and it always will. We should not be afraid of science. Don't be afraid of science. Okay? So, all right, let me stop right there. Any thoughts about any of that stuff?
One of the things about, you've been talking about mutations and changing. If man tries to mix things, then usually the offspring, if they're related close enough that they have an offspring, that offspring cannot reproduce.
That's right.
So there's a check there that stops it.
Yeah, and that's one thing about mutations we'll talk about later. Mutations are never go up.
No.
Never make things better. Mutations always go down. Sometimes mutations might be beneficial for us as humans. One of the things I read was about a mutated sheep. There was a particular sheep that that mutated and had little bitty old short legs. And the guys thought, hey, this is great, we'll have a brand of sheep, it's gonna have little legs. Or did we just build a wall about that big and keep our sheep in? Well, guess what? Guess how fast they could run when the wolf jumped in? Yeah, they got eaten pretty good because they couldn't get away. And so, you know, there are some what we would consider beneficial for us type of mutations, but beneficial for the species itself. I don't know that we know any of the mutations that have been beneficial for life itself, for the existence of that particular life form. So anyway,
With respect to the complexity
right.
of the universe that we live in, I think we would probably all accept that the probability that we're gonna win $100 million in the lottery is probably pretty small,
Pretty small.
pretty close to zero. That, the probability that we're gonna get eaten by a shark, probably pretty small. Probability that we're gonna get struck by lightning, very small. The probability that you're gonna win the lottery, get struck by lightning, attacked by a shark in the same day.
Living in Oklahoma.
Yeah, while living in Oklahoma.
Incredibly small.
Yeah,
But
that's
that
right.
probability is immensely greater than the probability that you can get a universe as complex as ours by accident.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
so,
we'll look at some of this probability stuff as we get on down the road, but again, you just kind of shake your head a little bit and just some of it's just crazy. All right, I think we've got only about a minute left, so we will pick up here in 2 weeks. Is my watch right? Is it 7:54? That look right? Okay. So we're gonna start looking at now some of the evidences that are out there. So just kind of building this structure as we go. And we're gonna look at design first. Design for me is as good as anything that we have for our faith, I believe. Then we're gonna take a look at morality. Will be the kind of the second piece of the evidence. And then we're going to move into some examples that are out there. We'll look at later on, we'll look at some fossil stuff, some archaeological finds that all kind of tie into this kind of apologetic discussion here. So, all right. How are we doing here? Nobody wants to look at me. You will lead us in prayer? Thank you, brother.
We thank you for the day to have, Lord, the opportunity to come and learn about you, your grace, Lord, and you fit in with God. We thank you for the life you've given us. Thank you for the opportunity you have for us to go and share your word with those who are affected by the hurricane. We ask that you place your hand around them, Lord, bring comfort and peace and all that we need, Lord. God, as we goes by, I ask that eventually comes up to share you and your wisdom and your word, Lord. And to preach Jesus, Lord, and share you with other Lord. God, we love you in your son's name.
Amen. Thanks.